Welcome to Mind Control and Technology, Chapter 2, Brainwave Technology. This chapter will focus on brainwaves and the technologies which have been developed to both measure brainwaves and to modify or manipulate them. To start this chapter, we'll begin with some additional information about brainwaves. If you have not subscribed yet, please remember to do so. Thank you.
The first scientific research into biofeedback was done back in 1875 by Richard Catton, who discovered that brainwaves moved with mental activity. In the 1920s, Hans Berger was the first to measure the EEG, or the electroencephalograph, on a human scalp. Later on, he discovered two different types of brainwaves. Today, we know there are many different types of brainwaves.
Our brains pulsate and vibrate. And these pulsations, these vibrations, are measured, just like sound, in cycles per second. I'm talking about the pulsations, the rhythmatic functions of the brain that determine, on one level or another, different states of activity and perhaps different states of consciousness. The brain pulses and vibrates. And these pulsations, these vibrations, have been broken down into four major delineations which oftentimes relate to many different types of activities.
In particular, the human brain emits certain electromagnetic waves, called brainwaves, according to a person's activity and relative circumstances. Brainwaves are divided into gamma waves, beta waves, alpha waves, theta waves, and delta waves.
To quickly summarize the different types of brainwaves, their frequency ranges, and their associated states and descriptor words, there is gamma, 30 to 100 Hz, associated with perception, alertness and anxiety; beta, 13 to 30 Hz, cognitive thinking, alertness, focus, and concentration; alpha, 8 to 13 Hz, relaxed and receptive state, with passive absorption of information; theta, 4 to 8 Hz, creativity, deep relaxation, and meditative states; delta, 0.5 to 4 Hz, unconscious mind, intuition and dreams, sleep, and deep meditation. The gamma state is often omitted from many charts because of a lack of detailed information about it, and because its spectrum overlaps the sound wave spectrum and may be better understood through studying the effect of music on the mind. And as a final note on brainwaves and states of mind, the deduction that brainwaves correspond to states of mind directly is not exactly true. There are definitely correlations, but as Jonathan Goldman will explain, it isn't quite this simple and can be overridden by the phenomenon of conscious intent.
There was a small little footnote, a little asterisk in the book, and it said, there is no correlation between brainwave activity and states of consciousness. And I said, yes, this is true, because you know, if there were a one-to-one relationship between the way the brain is oscillating and vibrating and our states of consciousness, we will all be at least semi-enlightened, because television puts you into an alpha state. Therefore, it is not only at what rate or oscillation the brain is working, but what you are doing with your consciousness while this is occurring. Very important. What is your intention during this frequency shift?
Progressing slightly, we'll now cover the topic of binaural rhythms, or beats. Binaural beats are created when two similar sound waves are emitted together, but at slightly offset frequencies. A third sound wave will arise from the two, which has a frequency equal to the difference between the two sound waves. These frequencies can be as low as 0 Hz, which would indicate the two waves are the same frequency, and up to any frequency. Importantly, the frequencies of which the brain functions, subsonic frequencies, can be perceived with stereo headphones as binaural rhythms using this method. Remembering the concept of entrainment from earlier, we can combine binaural beats with our knowledge of brainwave types from the last chapter to intelligently affect the mind. Knowing the mind can shift its brainwave frequency to match that of a stimuli, and also that we can produce frequencies directly matching those of brainwaves, we now have a practical method for affecting or altering consciousness. By listening to and focusing on binaural sound waves, for example, in the delta range, we can help induce a lowered state of consciousness matching a sleeping and relaxed state of mind. Similarly to sound, pulses of light emitted in repetitions at a frequency in the range of brain waves can also induce specific states of consciousness corresponding to that frequency. Further still, pulses of electricity on the skin and felt as touch can also entrain consciousness by the same means as time pulses of light. combined together, a fairly reliable and powerful method of inducing a specific state of mind consistently for most or all people can be devised. This can be utilized for both positive and negative means, to heal or to hurt.
Now, to help you understand some things about brain entrainment, your eyes and your ears entrain to things. Meaning it will look at visual events and how fast they're moving, and it'll determine how fast to run its processor, and it will deal with audio events. So if I put 100 cycles here and 90 here on this ear, and I check your brain speed 190, you'll be running at 10 cycles. It'll subtract 90 from 100. They call that binaural beats, the guys that build brain entrainment systems, and that's how they get 10 hertz your brain. They'll force it to run that. If you sat around a campfire, you watch people, they're watching the flames flicker, and they're looking at that, and they get very relaxed. Well, the speed is probably somewhere around 7-8 cycles. What this does is it puts out visual pulsations and audio tones at a specific speed, and eventually your brain will match that, and it'll walk you down or walk you up. It just trains the brain to up and down shift. And guess what? At 15 cycles, it opens up this little file cabinet that says, this is the behavior I expect of you when your brain is running at this frequency. See, that's why individuals, for example, who expose themselves visually to violent video games and things will become violent people. And they can become explosive, loaded cannons, and they don't know what happened. You'll see these people in court, I don't know what happened, I just exploded. Well, actually, while they're playing these violent games, they're entraining to the visual and audio frequencies of that event, and the brain now associates that speed with that behavior. And you don't have to be there to go back to those feelings of rage or aggression.
But, and then comes on the little media framed image, you know, then people are shocked, you know, and they turn to that as if it's some sort of freak phenomena or something like that. It's actually, the sad case is it's not freak. And anyone who's really studied mind control understands that mind control is ubiquitous. It's almost the question of who is not mind controlled, as opposed to, you know, who is mind controlled. It's just a difference in degree. The whole question of what is consciousness and how it can be manipulated is one of the most crucial questions of our time.
You know, in ancient times they used the sword and they used the gun and they used other methods like religion for pushing the populace around and getting people to do what was wanted. But in recent times, in the 20th century, there are new technologies that provide the expertise to control people totally without their knowledge. Means of electronic entrainment, brain control implants, methods of advertising that manipulate us against our will. And this isn't science fiction, this is something that's...
The longer a person watches television, the more easily the brain slips into alpha level, a slow, steady brainwave pattern in which the mind is in its most receptive mode. Images and suggestions are implanted directly into the mind without viewer participation. An effective hypnosis is induced, and the viewer surrenders to the unending television image stream. Images of television violence stimulate the fight-or-flight instinct. But since it would be absurd to react to television violence, the viewer suppresses the emotion. Viewers are drawn back and forth on cycles of impulse and suppression. When the set goes off, this stored-up energy bursts forth in frantic behavior commonly associated with childhood hyperactivity.
As has become obvious, television is perhaps the most prevalent mind control technology common today. It induces a very receptive and suggestive mode of consciousness, while at the same time pumping other means of mind control at the viewer, such as propaganda, subliminals, disinformation, as well as neuro-linguistic and emotional manipulations. Video games can act in the same way, but with the addition of interactivity, which can be further used to condition, train and desensitize individuals to the imagery and situations depicted in the game. The conscious mind may be able to differentiate, but the unconscious mind and emotions see no distinction between an immersive simulation of reality and reality itself. Stay tuned for the second part of Chapter 2, Brainwave Technology. We will continue on the same topic and study the more advanced technologies and developments related to brainwaves and consciousness manipulation. Please also remember to like and share this mini-series if you enjoy it. Goodbye for now.